Hello, everyone. Welcome to our breakdown of a fun card UFC London this week from the O2 Arena. A massive card once again taking place in London here in the year 2022. Fight so good last time, they had to come back with another card, stacked with some great European talent. And honestly, could argue even a bit more exciting than the pay-per-view coming up the week after. So we're breaking this one down here for Dine Sports. Nick, how are you tonight? I'm excited to go through these fights with you.
Yeah, man, I'm right there with you. And I totally agree. I know looking ahead to next week's pay-per-view card, it's okay. This is definitely the better card. I think top to bottom, we have some really fun matchups. This is one of those cards with a ton of favorites, so it's probably a good parlay card. You just got to avoid any landmines. But yeah, some betting spots I really like, a couple underdogs I like, but top to bottom should be a fun day of fights. And yeah, they start at 11 a.m. Eastern, or is it noon now? They bumped it an hour. But yeah, early morning card for a lot of us, especially anyone on the West Coast. So just keep that in mind. This is going to be an early one.
Yep, get up early, get your bets to the window early, and yeah, we'll break this card down starting now. Actually, with the main event, so the last fight of the evening. A really exciting one at heavyweight. I mean, the up and coming Tom Aspinall taking on a staple of the division in the number 4 ranked Curtis Blaydes. Clearly the toughest test thus far for Aspinall since joining the UFC. He's been on an insane run, undefeated, finishing fights quickly. He hasn't had a fight see later than minute number 8 in his entire career. Gets out there, super physical, super clean boxer, but showing some great offensive grappling as well. In his few fights thus far in the UFC. It's just going against a potent wrestler like Curtis Blaydes. I really see a situation where the more proven guy is probably going to be able to take this to the mat and do what he does best. I have a sneaking suspicion this is going to be a deflating night in the O2 after they got to see Tom Aspinall get a big win his last time out. I'm very hesitant to back him here against somebody the caliber of Blaydes. I think he's a future, honestly, heavyweight champion, Tom Aspinall, with just the flashes we've seen so far, but this seems like too much so soon. I mean, just a high level fighter like Blaydes, I feel like if he executes his game plan, is going to be able to stay out of danger and put Tom Aspinall on his back for a majority of this fight. So at dog money, he's my lean in the main event. It's a close one for sure, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's close. It's very, very, very close. Like, I don't see how anyone is super confident in either direction, honestly. I will agree with you, though. I think all the values on Blaydes here, you're getting him at plus money. This is the first time in the UFC we've seen him at plus money, I think, ever. So there's obviously value there. I mean, there's a lot of sharp people who consider him to be the most skilled heavyweight in the world. He's been chin checked by Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou, but that happens at heavyweight, so it's tough to get too hard on him for those. And I like what I've heard from him in interviews this week. You know me, I'm taking as much media as I can. And he really, I don't know, he knows the mistakes he made against Derek Lewis. He's going to be smarter. And I think going against Dawkins, that was a nice bounce back spot, but really Dawkins should probably be fighting at 205 in my opinion. I don't think he's going to be able to climb to this level of this division. Whereas I do see Aspinall. I mean, he's massive, man. He's huge. I'm looking forward, like they already faced off at media day or whatever it was. I'm looking forward to the face off at weigh-ins just to see how these guys square up. Aspinall is actually listed as the taller fighter at 6'5" compared to Blaydes at 6'4". Blaydes has a slight reach advantage, but obviously Aspinall is the crisper striker. I honestly think that Aspinall is going to stuff some takedowns early here. I just think the question becomes what his cardio is going to look like in those later rounds. We've really never seen him in a third round, barely seen him in a second round other than that Arlovsky fight in the UFC. So there's just so many question marks around him. And those are negative question marks. I think there's also positive question marks too. This is a guy who's been training jiu-jitsu for years under his own father. He's been coaching at a gym for years. He's going to have some of the best BJJ in the heavyweight division. That's very easy to say. Not many guys have any jiu-jitsu credentials at all. And I mean, one way to kind of survive a wrestler is to use those submissions to maybe get back to your feet. Like we saw him hit that arm lock on Volkov. I mean, he can maybe twist the Kimura to work his way back up. I think he'll be live for a sub, even if he could really get over on a Kimura and turn into a reversal. Like if you're on the Aspinall side, I think that's maybe one of the best ways to see him win. It's just like we haven't seen it before. Like we haven't seen him in the late rounds. We haven't seen him really work the submissions. We haven't seen him on his back much at all. We haven't seen him against a wrestler as good as Blaydes. But at the same time, I mean, we haven't really seen Blaydes fight anyone that's gonna be as good, I think, defensively in terms of grappling. Like he was really able to ground Rosenstruck, which wasn't a surprise. Volkov did a decent job working back to his feet consistently. Lewis was stuffing takedowns on him, which is a bit of a red flag to me. Like I think we have to kind of look at that Lewis fight and say, okay, he shot on him 3 times, got none of them, and then got knocked out. So if he's not successful early here, does he start to get discouraged? Does he start having flashbacks to that Lewis fight in the O2 arena with the whole crowd behind Aspinall? Like this feels like a true coin flip to me. But at the odds, I mean, I'd rather bet the Blaydes side in current. This is one of those fights, and we always do this on this show. We record on Thursday nights. Article usually comes out Saturday morning. Don't be surprised to see me switch sides here. Like I've really gone back and forth. When this fight was announced, I was all like, okay, I love Blaydes here. But then kind of watching Aspinall, some of the training camp stuff on that Full Reptile channel, just seeing him grapple, like he does have better kind of ground game than anyone we've seen Blaydes against in a really long time. At the same time, Blaydes is definitely the better fighter just based on what we've seen. But I mean, there's a chance Aspinall is that good. So it's just usually you don't have this many question marks going into a heavyweight matchup. I think Jiri Glover is kind of a similar example. No one expect that fight to go the way it went. We could see some weird stuff here. This is just, I don't know. Obviously, you think Blaydes can score the takedowns. I tend to agree, but can he score them enough that Aspinall's not going to be able to get off at the starter rounds when they're back on their feet? Is Aspinall going to gas? Like, I just have more questions than answers here. So it's tough for me to really recommend backing either side unless you're just betting value, which I do think is on Blaydes, but I could not call it a confident play at all.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally agree. It's a super close fight. I am on Blaydes. That's the side I'm going to be sticking with. As you said, when it comes to value, I think that's clearly it. As we've seen more from him, he's the proven commodity. His losses are like the 2 Ngannou fights. One was the eye closing on him. I mean, that's legit. One was that Goddard stoppage, which I mean, he was cleft, he was hurt, but
He
that
was
one
dead if he didn't.
could be argued. But again, it's these massive power punches, power punchers that are taking him out. I don't know if Aspinall is going to be able to really put the combinations together in a fight like this against someone like Blaydes who can, take a step forward and really threaten with that takedown. Aspinall would probably more so want to rely on his speed and, staying on the outside as much as he can. But I actually agree with you. I think submission is probably his more likely path to victory in this spot, just catching Blaydes with something, whether it be in an exchange and, hooking onto the neck, getting a transition from there, or, attacking the arms and legs. He's certainly live, but
Yeah.
Blaydes has that nuclear option too on the feet. I mean, he could always land. A close fight, awesome fight. But yeah, I like Blaydes. I mean, he went into Australia, silenced the crowd, beat Mark Hunt.
That was the end of Mark Hunt.
I know. I kind of just feel like he could suck the life out of this arena, though. Bring it to round 2, bring it to round 3. Really get Aspinall in the deep waters and melt him.
Well, let me just throw in one other thing here. Most people don't try to take Curtis Blaydes down, but he has just a 33% takedown defense. Aspinall, obviously, if he could get on top, has good ground and pound and good submissions. So maybe he really throws a wrench in things and pursues a few takedowns of his own. If Blaydes is expecting them, he's going to defend them. But if, I don't know, Aspinall catches Blaydes throwing a hook, he can maybe take him down. And what better way to defend a takedown than to put the other guy on his back? And it's not like Aspinall's a small heavyweight. So there's just so many ways this fight could go. I'm super excited for it. A lot of these heavyweight matchups just haven't been good, even at the top of the division, but this one is awesome. Can't wait.
This one's awesome. And just touching on the heavyweights too, I think the winner of Tai Tuivasa, Cyril Gahn, will probably get the winner of this fight in a title eliminator. So fun times at the top of the heavyweight division.
Absolutely.
co-main event. This fight coming together on short notice here. Jack Hermansen taking on Chris, the Action Man Curtis, a month removed from his last victory inside the octagon. Curtis is filling in for Darren Till here after he had sustained an injury. You know, a lot of the UK fans are excited to see him back in action, but unfortunately that will not come this weekend. This is a true coin flip, as the odd makers say, in a really close fight. I mean, what we've seen out of Curtis in terms of takedown defense, his ability to pressure and, you know, put combinations together, definitely make him live in this spot. It's just, you know, a big step up at competition facing Hermansen here, a top 10 middleweight. And despite Curtis having, you know, 37 fights as a pro, certainly his toughest test to date. I'm still back and forth on this one. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I have a lot I can offer in terms of like stats and situational narrative and things like that, but I'm back and forth on it as well. I mean, the thing with Curtis is he just fought 2 weeks ago. He did look great against Rodolfo Vieira. It's a similar matchup in that he's going to have to sprawl and brawl. He's going to have to defend takedowns. And while Vieira is obviously amazing once the fight hits the mat, really good jiu-jitsu, he's shown that after the first round, he really doesn't have any wrestling ability. And Hermansen, while his takedowns aren't the cleanest, they're certainly leagues ahead of Vieira. So I think Curtis is going to have to do even more in defending the takedowns. Like I saw Vieira went like 0 for 20 or 0 for 22 or whatever it was, but a lot of those are just lazy shots late in the fight. I think those statistics are just a little overblown here. And also it sounds like Curtis maybe like hurt his wrist or something in that fight. So he's taking this fight on short notice. He's getting his contract doubled, I think, essentially. His show money is way up there now. And there's another big piece here that I don't think too many people are talking about, because Curtis has been so successful at 185. His intentions in the UFC are to fight at 170 pounds. He is not a big 185er. Hermansen is a true 185er. So I think, I don't know, Vieira is a monster too. Like he's just as big as Hermansen. But I mean, if the wrestling's going to be better for Hermansen here, I think he could ground Curtis, and I think he could work him for a sub or get some ground and pound, control him on the ground. I don't know. Everyone likes to say Curtis is great in these short notice situations because he fought in the PFL, but I mean, he didn't have too much success in the PFL, like in those back-to-back fights and things like that. So I don't know. I'm leaning Hermansen here. I think he's the value side, especially at dog money. We've seen more from him. He got hurt early in that fight with Vettori, and then they went to war. I think Vettori would run through Curtis, just to play a little MMA math. But then on the other side, I mean, we saw Strickland pick apart Hermansen on the feet with Chris Curtis in his corner. And Curtis was yelling for certain combinations. He was yelling for things. He knows Hermansen very well. Like, he knows the holes in his game. So that's an advantage to Curtis. But you have to wonder, I mean, this is a huge step up. And as good as Rodolfo Vieira is on the mat, he was never really a ranked fighter, even in the shallow middleweight division. So I don't know. It just feels like too big of a step up on short notice. But at the same time, I mean, we've been making money on Curtis, backing him as an underdog. It's tough to fade him right now on this run he's on. So I'm backing Jack here with very little confidence. And I can't say I'm 100% settled, but just based on what I've seen on film, Hermansen's last few fights, I think he's being undervalued because he got jabbed to death by Strickland, but this is just a very different matchup.
Yeah, I think that connection with Strickland certainly will help Curtis in this fight. I mean, just fought him, just trained for the guy, probably emulated him in sparring.
Right.
So certainly, you know, could play to his benefit. I like the activity too. I mean, Curtis is 7-0 since the start of 2021. I mean, Hermansen's 1-1, I think, just 2 fights. I mean, that's a huge factor, and I could see momentum playing in, and, you know, allowing Curtis to step those takedowns and get the win here. It just, I don't know. I think it's tough. I think it's going to be tough for him to get Hermansen out of there, and, you know, winning a decision against someone who's been at this caliber for so long is something I don't really want to bet on in a pick'em fight. So. I'm still undecided. I'm probably staying away from this one from a betting perspective, but Curtis was my lean, and I'm still undecided if that will change come Saturday.
Yeah, just one point I have to counter there. Obviously, we're impressed by Curtis's activity, and we wish Hermansen was fighting more. That's really not his fault. He had Till pull out twice, not only for this fight, but back in December of 2020. Holland had to pull out for COVID. Shabazian pulled out of a fight. So it's not Hermansen's fault that he's not fighting as much as we'd like him to. It's really just been terrible luck for him. So maybe this is good luck. He's getting a similar matchup here, I think, against Curtis than he would have had against Till. So I don't know. I still lean with Hermansen. I just think he's going to be bigger, better, but I don't know. Curtis has been really impressive, so it's tough to feel confident about it.
For sure, for sure. Should be a great fight. I mean, I'm excited. I'm glad they got this together with Tills with the draw. The featured bout. This is going to be a great fight. Paddy the Batty Pimblett, back in the O2, ready to put on a show. Facing Jordan Levitt here, kind of a a grappling heavy fighter that can suck the life out of a matchup every once in a while. I think this is a favorable matchup for Paddy. Originally, it looked like he was going to be fighting Otman Zaitar in the spot, which is a power puncher that probably could have given him some real trouble. But I mean, against a guy like Levitt, it's really somebody who only finds success in those grappling exchanges. He really doesn't offer much on the feet in terms of sophisticated striking, some push kicks, not much else. I really think Paddy is going to try and keep the feet in this fight, and will find success striking with Levitt very early on if he does. Or if not, it'll be Levitt shooting, and what we've seen out of Paddy in his jiu-jitsu, he's somebody that I could rely on. Probably will be able to, at the very least, defend. If not, look to snatch up something on Levitt. I think Levitt's smart enough to stay out of any submissions in the spot, but I don't really see him hanging with Pimblett here. I don't like what I've heard out of interviews and such this week. He skipped a face-to-face with Paddy, who was scheduled for today. I think Paddy is going to go in and, with the crowd behind him, roll in a fight like this against Levitt, find another finish in his third UFC fight so far.
Right. Yeah, I'm high on Pimblett. There's huge holes in his game, especially defensively on the feet. But this is the perfect matchup for that because, like you said, Levitt really isn't a striker. He throws under 2.5 significant strikes per minute, or lands under 2.5 per minute. And like you said, he throws those big push kicks. It's almost like, what's his name, Ryan Hall. He just tries to stay out of danger with his striking, or just set up his grappling with his striking. And I mean, maybe Levitt has a slight wrestling advantage here, like if he can ground Paddy. But the thing about Levitt is, I mean, he does find submissions, but he more so grapples to control position. So I would just say this, like, just to play devil's advocate, I think the path for Levitt would be the most boring 15-minute fight possible. But I don't think that's really likely here. I think Paddy's going to run across the cage and just throw a push kick and then start throwing a combination at him. I think that's how this fight starts. I think Paddy's going to chase him around the cage. He's not going to be afraid of any strike Levitt's throwing. I don't think Levitt's ever knocked anyone out, at least not on the feet.
Slam.
Yeah, but yeah, Pimblett's going to run forward. He's the better striker here. He has huge holes defensively, but that's not something I see Levitt capitalizing on. And we saw him melt Luigi Vendramini. We haven't seen Levitt knocked out before, but there's really nothing about him, his stature or anything, that makes me think he has some super chin. Like, we haven't really seen it tested that extensively. I mean, Ogden made him look really not so great. I know we both had Levitt, I think, going into that fight. And yeah, that was a close decision. And yeah, I think Levitt's underestimating Paddy here, which is ridiculous to do. He's saying he doesn't think the crowd will be drunk by 9 p.m. local time. Like, come on. Like, these are crazy people over in the UK. They're pre-gaming for soccer at 8 in the morning most weekends, and then, like, I don't know. He's saying
Levitt has
Paddy
only fought in the Apex too.
That's true.
Now in an O2 full of fans chanting Paddy. And Paddy's a bigger guy. I mean, I think he's going to be able to really control the grappling exchanges a bit more, using his size, using bulking up after the weigh-in.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to grapple though. Like, I think the clear path for here for Pimblett, he's a great jiu-jitsu player. He's a black belt. Sprawl and brawl, just sprawl and brawl all day. Pick Levitt apart on the feet. He really wants that KO. You can hear him talk about it.
I think
like,
it comes early.
Yeah, I think he gets it too. So I'm back in Pimblett here. I'll probably take Paddy inside the distance. I maybe just by knockout. Like, the sub doesn't seem very likely. Because Levitt, yeah, he's a great grappler, especially defensively. So I'm all over Pimblett here. I get everyone wants to fade the hype train. I just don't think this is the spot. So yeah, Paddy inside the distance, first or second round probably. And I mean, we haven't seen Levitt KO'd before, but this feels like the UFC is kind of setting him up for failure. And yeah, if he can't make this the worst fight on the card in terms of entertainment value, he's not going to have a chance.
Right. Should be a great fight. Prior to that, light heavyweights, Nikita Krylov taking on Alexander Gustafsson, who a bit over the hill at this point. I mean, moving back down from a heavyweight fight against Fabricio Verdum, not very active, looking slow, looking softer than he has before.
At heavyweight.
I mean, yeah, all the cage time too, I think, has taken something out of him. And as a guy who has always, relied more on volume and cardio in order to win fights, I just don't think at this stage of his career there are a ton of guys in this division he's going to find success against. I think Krylov is somebody he really could have moments with. I mean, his size, his ability to stay in fights in the past, and that kind of makes him live in a spot like this against someone in Krylov who really doesn't have the best 3-round cardio himself. But I mean, I think he is the rightful favorite. You would imagine that Krylov's going to be able to, probably not keep up with Gustafsson per se on the feet, but land the bigger strikes. Probably have the bigger moments if he decides to, bring this fight to the mat early. And yeah, I like his chances here. It's probably not a spot I would hammer, but just with how Gustafsson's look, it's impossible to get to the window with him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, this is another one. When the fight was announced, I was pretty damn confident in Krylov, just seeing Gustafsson in that last Verdum fight. But then you see Gustafsson this week, man, and he's in good shape. Like, he looks like a 205er again. We haven't seen him look like this since 2019. And I get it. He retired. He didn't want to fight, but now he's back. But here's the thing. I mean, he's fighting out of All-Stars with Khamzat. Volkan Ozdemir, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, was also a part of that camp. And I'm kind of like taking pieces from other people's like interviews to get to where I'm at. But like Ozdemir was saying how he was like blown away by how difficult the camps are over at All Stars in Sweden. And I mean, if Gustafsson's going through those same exact camps, he's going to have to be pretty engaged here. He's going to have to be in good shape. And I mean, Gustafsson at his best is the better striker by a lot against Krylov. And I think defensively grappling, he's really good as well. So if you're getting this Gustafsson and he's a throwback to what he was a few years ago, I think he's the side here. But the thing is like, how do you make that decision? Like,
hard to imagine that. Yeah.
Right, it's really hard to imagine. So like, as much as there's reasons to like Gustafsson here, a lot of them are speculative. And I don't know, Krylov's looked pretty good lately. Like, he shut down Johnny Walker, and you know how low I am on Johnny Walker. But he executed a smart game plan there. And I think he could kind of look to be a little takedown heavy here as well. Just the issue with that is, does he fade in the later rounds? So I like Krylov here. He's my pick, but at minus 200 and growing, I just really don't feel great about it. Like, if that line gets back closer to 180, 170, I could see maybe grabbing him, but he's definitely not a parlay piece for me by any stretch. I think Gustafsson could knock him out. I think Gustafsson could win rounds. He's a good minute winner when he's at his best. And I mean, as far as grappling goes, Krylov's going to have the better jiu-jitsu, I think, but Gustafsson's not a terrible wrestler. Like, he's been in there with Jones and Cormier, and Anthony Smith ran through him at the end of his career there. But like, I don't know. I don't rate Krylov on the level of any of those guys. Krylov's looked better lately. And another thing, we talked recently about the last time we did the show, it was Lawler against Barberena, and we both took Lawler, but I brought up the point. I was like, the one thing I'm afraid of here is that this is kind of the Super Bowl for Brian Barberena. He's looked up to Lawler his whole life. Him and his wife were celebrating getting this fight. Listening to Krylov in interviews, this kind of feels similar. Like, he really looked up to Alexander Gustafsson. He considers this the biggest fight by far of his career, and he's been in there with Hank Aliyev and a lot of other top names. But he sees this as like his crowning achievement if he can get it done. So to me, that's another reason to like Krylov. Just a more active fighter, a little bit younger, more athletic at this point in their careers. But at the same time, I mean, if they're going to stand and strike for 3 rounds, it's tough not to favor Gustafsson. I just don't know that we see that. So I'm taking Krylov here, just not a confident pick, and I would leave him out of some of these big parlays we're going to be making.
Yeah, no, agree with you there. I do like Krylov, but I think it will need to be, over by the first 10 minutes, or else it really does get sketchy.
It's scary. Yeah.
What we've seen. Yeah, for sure. All right. Another Scouser, Molly McCann, fighting Hannah Goldie in this women's flyweight bout that we'll break down next. Molly McCann with a huge spinning elbow finish last time we were in London. Now she's sitting here as a minus 400 favorite over Hannah Goldie here, and another fight that you would expect her to win, but certainly a tough spot to be laying a number like that when it comes to women's MMA. I think her cardio, I think her advantage on the feet is going to be key in getting the win here. She'd also probably be the fighter who, if wanting to, could take this down and, grind this out on the mat. But I think in front of the fans, it's probably going to stay standing, which makes it a little sketchier than it should be. But Molly should roll through, a fighter like Hannah Goldie when it comes to, exchanges on the feet. Her brawling nature certainly makes her somebody you don't want to bet as a minus 400. But yeah, I see her getting the job done, Patty getting the job done again here in London. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my first thought is I don't ever want to back like a barely ranked women's fighter at minus 400. But at the same time, I agree with you. Molly's definitely the side. She's just way more aggressive. She's going to be leading the exchanges striking. I think their grappling is kind of a wash. Like Goldie's really kind of stout. She has that kind of wide wrestling base. Like, not that she's a wrestler by any stretch, but she should be able to defend takedowns against Molly and have moments against the cage if they're grappling there. But I think in the striking, Molly's just going to be leagues above her. Really crisp boxing. And surprising power, I mean, for this division. I did see Hannah Goldie had one knockout on her record, but it came against some woman who was like 1-10 really early in her career. So I think Molly can just walk through whatever shots she's going to be throwing at her. I think Molly's going to outland her on volume, and it wouldn't surprise me to see her get a finish. I probably will tie Molly into some parlays, but again, I really, really don't feel great about the minus 400. Just historically in women's MMA, those numbers have not come through at great rate. So yeah, I'm taking Molly here. I think she's the side. I think she rolls. This is another setup by the UFC. Really, when you look at it, like off of some of the wins Molly's had and some of the fights she's had in the past, she should be fighting better competition. Like, it makes no sense that she's in there with Hannah Goldie with some of the wins she has on her record. Like, she's fought and beat better fighters in the past. So I don't know. I like Molly here. I think this is kind of a layup. But at the same time, minus 400, like, it's not like she's some world beater either. So it's tough to get excited about the price.
The price is crazy, honestly, like way overhyped from the last one. But again, I think the rightful side, and it's tough when you can't make money in spots like this. But yeah, Molly should get it done.
Yep.
And then the fight opening up the main card is a very fun one, light heavyweight bout. Paul Craig fighting Volkan Oezdemir. I mean, this is a great fight. I mean, what we've seen out of Paul Craig on this run is honestly insane. That fight against Krylov his last time out was, I mean, jaw-dropping. The way he took those shots and then was able to snatch up that arm, instantly and get the finish. His jiu-jitsu is as lethal as, just about anyone in the UFC, especially for a light heavyweight. I don't think there's many that can, pull off submissions like him. It's going to be tough in this spot against somebody in Volkan Oezdemir who has good takedown defense and, really does have the advantage when it comes to technical ability on the feet. I just think Oezdemir is further past his prime. He's looked slow and, a bit prodding in his last two bouts. And I think a guy like Craig, who's on such a roll, hopefully will be able to close the distance really quick, stay out of, the danger zone with Oezdemir, and hopefully put him on the ground, or at least, get an arm, get a leg, start a transition in order to pull off a sub. Again, Craig is being disrespected as the underdog. With the way he fights, with the style he fights, with his really one path usually being the submission, it is fair. But I do like him in this fight. I'm not that excited about Oezdemir at this stage of his career, and I'm shocked to see him even as a minus 155 in this spot. I actually locked in Craig already at a 145 earlier in the week. The line's closed a bit, but he's the side I like in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone back and forth on this one as well, and I do kind of get the line though. I mean, here's the thing: Craig needs this submission. He's not a good striker, terrible defensive striker. And I mean, Krylov was willing to grapple with him, and that's why I picked Craig in that spot, because I knew he would be. Jamal Hill shouldn't have been willing to grapple with him, but he wanted to prove a point, and he just ran into his guard and got his arm snapped. I mean, Rua's washed. Antigulov, I don't rate at all. But then you switch sides and you look at who Ozdemir's losing to. I mean, he got KO'd by Jiri, the champion, and then he lost to Ankalaev convincingly, but it wasn't as convincingly as I think a lot of people wanted to see from Ankalaev. Some people thought if he kind of of ran through Ozdemir there. He might have been closer to the title than he is now. Now he's going to fight Anthony Smith. So yeah, I mean, I think the line is decent. I am leaning with Craig because just he has something about him. It's like this magic ability to find a submission, even if he can't score the takedown. He can run off the fence and grab his arm or try to post on a, like, I don't even know. Like the things I'm saying now, like it doesn't matter. Like Craig finds a way to get a limb. So like, I don't know. If I'm betting Craig, it's by submission. I don't think he would win a decision here at all. Like I think Ozdemir's the much better striker, like leagues ahead of Craig on the feet. And I also think Ozdemir's not the type of guy to grapple with Craig. And I mean, the one thing that's benefited Craig in these last few spots is Krylov. He pretty much had the.
I'll just pick up real quick here. We're frozen with Nick for a second. I think that Volkan Ozdemir certainly. Oh, Nick, you cut out for a second there. Pick it back up.
Yeah, what's the last thing you heard from me?
I guess you cut out like 20 seconds ago. Just breaking down the other concerns. Again, what I'll just throw out here is, when it comes to Craig, he has only been KO'd once since 2017. That was against the power puncher in Alonzo Menafield. Ozdemir has only had the one knockout since 2017. So, I mean, that's going to be his best path. In a low output decision, it probably is going to go to Ozdemir still. But yeah, I'm not terrified of a knockout, and that's why there is value on Craig as the underdog. Yep.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, I don't know where I got cut out, but I really like the move to All Stars for Ozdemir. He's like sleeping near the gym, like he kind of removed himself from his family. And I mean, we're looking at the recent losses. It's Prokoshka who's the champion, and it's Ankalaev, who many consider to be the next champion. Like it's not like he's losing to bad competition. He has the win over Rakic in a really close fight. So it's like, I don't know. I get the reasons not to like Ozdemir, but I think if you're backing Craig, you're really hoping for that submission, and that's kind of his only path. So yeah, I lean Craig right now, but it's like a lean on an outcome that isn't the most common outcome here. Like I think the more common outcome is Ozdemir decision, maybe even Ozdemir KO, but just the momentum Craig has right now, it's just unbelievable. But all that being said, I don't see Ozdemir as someone like Krylov who's going to be willing to grapple. I don't see him making the same mistakes as Hill, being a pure striker, deciding to try to prove something grappling. He's not that stupid. This is a tougher matchup for both. This is a tougher matchup for him than both those fights. Hill should have been the tougher matchup, but he was just incredibly stupid in that spot. And he would say that himself. So I don't know. I like Craig here by sub, but it is by no means a confident play. And I think people are kind of too down on Ozdemir in some regards. And I think the line kind of, I don't know. If everyone's on ball Craig, why isn't the line moving? I think there's still sharp money on Ozdemir.
All right. Well, we will see how the fight plays out. Hopefully you're sticking on the Paul Craig side with me, but one way or the other, we will see. The prelims, Fawn, again, starting noon on Saturday. The featured prelim is going to be a great bout with Mason Jones taking on Ludovic Klein at lightweight. I mean, two guys who love to strike primarily. I mean, Mason Jones has some elite level boxing and high output too that I really think makes him lethal, especially in the lightweight division. I mean, he's got a big frame and certainly will have the size advantage against somebody like Ludovic Klein, who has a history fighting as low as a featherweight in the past. I think Jones is probably going to be able to take control of this fight. He's a minus 400 favorite. I think he is going to have the advantage in terms of striking. And I think he also has the ability to mix in takedowns here against somebody in Ludovic Klein who really isn't much more than a kickboxer. We've seen him, have issues in terms of cardio and, defensive grappling in the past. And I think Jones certainly has the edge on him in this spot in those two areas. So I like Jones. I like Jones inside the distance. And, he's a plus 800 right now to win by submission in the spot. And I think that's just as likely as a knockout or decision. And at those odds, certainly worth a sprinkle.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen Jones really go after the submissions, but I do like the value on that number a lot. I'm with you. I think Jones is a side here. I think you could probably loop him in a parlays. The one thing you have to worry about with Ludovic is that kind of high left kick. He throws a really good left hand as well. He's a powerful striker, but at the same time, Jones's chin has been unbelievable. We saw it in the Onama fight, and even more so in the Davis fight in his debut, just eating clean shots. He's a blockhead, man. He's like the Vittori of lightweight. Like, I think that's a really good comparison. He's averaging over 4 takedowns as well per 15 minutes. I think he's going to have a distinct grappling advantage here. We've seen Klein grapple a bit more, but I don't know why. I think he just kind of started learning some things and he likes to bring them into the cage. But we were all high on him coming into the UFC as a kickboxer. It's just he's kind of abandoned that. And it seems that the biggest trouble he has is when fighters like to pressure him. We saw that in the Landwehr fight, who kind of just drowned him over 10, 15 minutes till he got that sub. Same with Trezano. Trezano just kept coming forward, just wouldn't get out of his face. And we saw Klein start to fade. And I mean, what is Mason Jones but a pressure fighter? He's going to eat shots, keep coming forward, go for takedowns. It's just a terrible matchup. So yeah, I'm here on Jones. I'm really high on him. I did like Klein coming into the UFC, but he just hasn't been that impressive. I know he got the win against Smith last time out, but yeah, I don't know. I'm on Jones here. I think you can parlay him as well.
Yep, I'm a confident pick here with Jones as well. Certainly will be in the parlays I'm building. Someone who won't be in the parlays I'm building, Mark Jacatzi, fighting Amir Hadzovic here. I mean, the minus, what are we looking at? A 360 right now is too rich for my blood. I mean, Mark Jacatzi certainly has the advantage in this fight. Better striker. We saw him mix in the grappling great in his last fight. Taking on it was Borshaw, or my mistake.
Slava Claus, who you were on.
Right. And I mean, that's about the victory here too. I think he's going to be better versed than Hadzovic when this fight is on the mat. There's just no incentive for me to bet him at a line like this. I think he is a little better, but I mean, Hadzovic has that nuclear option early in fights. He's live by a lucky KO or something big landing and hurting Jacatzi in the early rounds of this one. Jacatzi's probably going to be able to spread this out, go 15 minutes, look really clean doing it. But I'm definitely not getting to the window at a minus 370. He's not somebody I've ever really been high on. The volume's not great. He hasn't had many stellar finishes of late, so I'm not taking him in this spot. But and I'd advise against doing so with the volatility in a matchup like this. But I see why he's favored. He'll probably get the win.
Yeah, so here's my thing. I do like the Casey here, which you're not going to be surprised by. I made some nice money on him, taking him as a dog against Borshev. I don't really know that Hadzovic has that nuclear option. I mean, we saw Diakase take shots from Fiziev in that matchup, and I mean, I don't rate Hadzovic's power anywhere near Rafael Fiziev. Not to play too much MMA math, he got caught in that submission against Alves, which was just a terrible performance. He doesn't have to worry about that here. Hadzovic really doesn't have the grappling to pull that off.
Badly first, so that was like I think it was knocked down by me, or
he still didn't get knocked out. He didn't get subbed out. So but yeah, I just don't rate Hadzovic at all. And similarly to the Borchev matchup, it's really the grappling. I hope Diakase knows to go for grappling again here. Like, it was just such a clear, obvious path to victory for him last time out with his back against the wall. If he lost there, it was 3 in a row. He probably got cut. So you just knew he would go for it. Against Hadzovic, I'm not as confident that he's not going to try to put on a show. But even if he does, I see him as the better striker. But if he grapples, I think he looks like the minus 360. Hadzovic has just better than like a 35% takedown defense in the UFC. We've seen him taken down by guys like Yancy Medeiros and Paulo Reyes, and it's just not a strong suit for him. And I mean, like you said, I guess maybe the one path for him would be kind of that KO upset, but I think the Casey has efficient enough defensive striking ability to kind of keep this fight where he needs to. And yeah, he's going to be the better striker at range. He's going to be the much better grappler. I don't know that he finishes him. He's not typically a finisher. But I don't know. I like the Casey here. The line is getting a little bit out of hand, but I really just don't rate Hadzovic at all. So I'm pretty comfortable taking the Casey here. I won't have him in every parlay, but I think I will have him in a few.
Yeah, and I mean, 14 fights, I'll be able to pick the favorites that I like. Casey's not one that will be in my parlays, but yeah, 1 or 2. I mean, I get it. All right, moving on down the card, featherweight matchup between Nathaniel Wood and Charles Rosa. Wood sitting right now minus 575, minus 600 some places, a crazy line. Love to hear your thoughts on this matchup here, and if you'll be including him as a favorite in your parlays you build.
Yeah, I will. I mean, the one thing if there's any knock on Nathaniel Wood here, it's that he's moving up a weight class, but I think that's going to be more beneficial than anything to him. Rosa's not exactly big for where are they fighting at 145. Yeah, because Wood's been fighting at bantamweight, and he's been kind of struggling to make that cut. And we saw in the Casey Kenny fight, like he starts to fade late in fights. It's probably the weight cut that's been affecting his cardio. He's a young athletic kid. You have to wonder why he was fading. And I mean, he's had these tough weight cuts. Like we see him on the scale, he never looks great. So moving up here should be great for him. I'm excited to see how he does, and I think Rose is just a really good matchup for him to get ushered into the division. Rose is one of the smaller 145ers. We've seen him get out grappled by Minner. Like I don't know, I don't rate Rosa that highly. He is tough. He's been in the UFC a long time, but he doesn't really have any finishing ability, so it kind of takes some of the variance out. And yeah, I just see Wood as the better striker. I think Rosa maybe could compete with him on the mat, but I don't think we see too much of the fight on the mat at all. I think it's mostly a stand-up battle that Wood out volumes Rosa, probably really batters him by the third round, maybe can score a late TKO or something like that. But I like Wood, and I like Wood by decision. I think just it's rare that we see Rosa finish. And with the change in weight classes, Wood should probably, I don't know how the power is going to look. Not that he had huge power at 135 either. So I'm guessing we're getting a much better number on Wood by decision. But if you want to take the money line, I do think he's a solid parlay piece. We just haven't seen anything out of Rosa recently that suggests he's going to be able to compete with guys that are kind of borderline ranked fighters. And that's what I consider Nate Wood at 135 or 145.
Yeah, I like Wood too in the spot. His last fight was back in October of 2020, a split decision against Casey Kenny, but that was actually a fight that I had him winning. It was close back and forth. But yeah, I definitely think the move up will be a help to him. The pictures we would see of him, on the scales or the day before weigh-ins at 135, he had literal 0% body fat when you look at him and his body. So a move up here is going to be beneficial. I think Rosa is going to be the one shooting, and I think his 75% takedown defense of Wood should hold up if he doesn't want to engage in those sorts of exchanges. But yeah, on the feet, he's the better striker, the cleaner striker, and more than double the output, with Rosa landing 3.05 significant strikes per minute to Wood's 6.28. So I think he really outvolumes him on the feet, kind of puts on a clinic there, and holds his own for sure in those grappling exchanges.
Yeah, I just want to say Wood did not beat Kenny that fight, but that's kind of irrelevant.
Close fight, split.
Yeah, but yeah, I like Wood here. Rosa's getting sent overseas to lose. Nate Wood missed the last card. His fight fell through the day of London, so he felt bad about that. He's really excited to get a win here in the O2.
And I see him getting his hand raised, getting that win here on Saturday. Breaking down next, another fight at featherweight. Jonathan Pierce taking on maquon Amir Connie. Another staple here in the UK on the European scene, but I actually do like the American going overseas here, getting his hand raised in this matchup. I mean, Pierce has looked good, landing 6 takedowns in 2 straight fights. I like his pressure. I like him implementing the wrestling. And Amir Connie is always kind of somebody who's live for those first, 5-6 minutes and then starts to fade. I think in a spot like this, it's going to be similar, where his best path to the victory will be by early submission. But somebody like, Pierce, who has shown pretty good fight IQ, should, if needed, keep things standard early, and then mix in those takedowns, use the wrestling late. He could go to the well, from the start. I may not like that as much as a backer, with them grappling dry. But yeah, I think if he survives that first round, he should be able to really use his wrestling to put on the pressure and, control Amir Connie on the mat for rounds 2 and 3. I like him in the spot. I probably will be, playing him one way or another at the -190 line. But Amir Connie's always live. I mean, it's not a super confident pick, but Pierce is the side I like.
Yeah, flashback to the last time there were no 2. I had a bunch of parlays, like 7-8 leggers, and Americani killed a good chunk of them when he choked out Grundy in the first couple minutes of that fight. So I'm very afraid to back Pierce here, and it's for multiple reasons. I mean, he did not look great against Rodriguez. He took on some 7-0 Dana White Contender Series newcomer, short notice guy who was undersized. And Pierce won, but I remember I think I had him inside the distance, and it was just not a great performance. He got caught in a choke. He was able to work his way out of, but obviously, if he's in that position against Maricani, he's not going to have as much success. But reasons to like Pierce. I mean, he's training at a Fight Ready. I caught a podcast, like someone was talking about Pierce's training camp. I can't remember who, but they were saying they were literally putting him into anacondas and just having him work out of them. Like that's been his whole camp. Like so the guys over there, Santino DeFranco, the other coaches, they know what the path is here. And at the same time, we were talking earlier how maybe it's an advantage for Curtis that Strickland recently fought Hermansen. We're kind of seeing the same thing here. Kamwela Kirk has a win over Americani, a nice upset win, mind you. And Jonathan Pierce and Kamwela Kirk train together almost daily. So that's another situation. If you like that angle for the co-main, maybe you like it here as well. For me personally, I'm very afraid. I mean, we see Pierce put himself in these bad positions. Joe Lozon was able to take advantage of him kind of making a mistake and getting caught on the grounds. That was a couple years ago. But we see in all his fights, man, he puts his neck in weird positions. And I mean, Americani, if he sees that neck, he's probably going to snatch it. Americani looked great that round one against Lerone Murphy. And I think you kind of nailed it. Like the first round is going to probably go to Americani either way here. Whether he catches the sub or not is going to be the key to who wins this fight. And if he doesn't get it in the first round, I think Pierce probably, like you said, wears on him in the second, probably dominates him in the third. But I am afraid of that first round because we've seen Pierce in worse positions against far worse grapplers. And sometimes, like, as much as he's training to defend these chokes, I don't know that there's anyone in his camp that can really replicate the Anaconda series that Americani has. And when you're so worried about one thing, like, sometimes that kind of manifests itself. So I don't know. I'm not confident in Pierce here at all. He's probably the smart side. He definitely has more paths to victory, but I don't know. Don't be surprised if you see me take Americani once our article drops Saturday morning.
Yeah, and again, certainly a live pick. It's always, kind of volatile picking Amir Khan. He's up and down. Some performances he's not
Right.
quite there, but yeah, it's just tough. I think I don't know if you're getting enough value there when it feels like his one path is just sub in the first 5 minutes. We'll
Bet him
see
by
though.
sub
Should be a
or
good
bet him
fight.
first
Yeah,
round.
yeah. There you go. There you go. Well, we'll dive into this next fight. I know it's one you are excited about. Muhammad Makayev taking on Charles Johnson at flyweight. Two hot prospects. Which one of them do you think has the brighter future in the UFC? I'll let you start digging into this one.
I mean, I don't know that you can really call Johnson a prospect because he's in his 30s and he's fighting at flyweight. He's been impressive in LFA, don't get me wrong. He kind of has that shoulder roll boxing style that you see out of like a Bobby Green. Like it's not nearly as clean. He's not nearly as sharp defensively, but he is a crisp boxer. Sometimes a slow starter, which could be trouble for him against Makayev here. This is an interesting matchup. I mean, Makayev, I guess he's saying that several fighters turned him down in the rankings. He's not mad at them. Like he understands that, but this is one of the only guys who was willing to take this fight. And I listened to Johnson say he told his management, any fight to get me in the UFC, I'll take. So these guys did spend a little time training together at Tiger Muay Thai. I listened to both of them talk about it. Johnson said, yeah, I got the better of the striking exchanges. Makayev said he got the better of the wrestling, but they really trained for like a day. There's really nothing to take from that. But okay, so that's enough about Charles Johnson. You know how high I am on Muhammad Makayev. He's one of my favorite prospects in the UFC. I've been high on him for a couple of years now, even before he got into the UFC. This is that next generation of fighter. These kids, like you see in other countries, kids start playing soccer when they're like 5 years old, 6 years old. Makayev was doing MMA like 13, 14, 15. Aspinall was actually his jiu-jitsu coach back when he was like 14 years old or something like that. You sent me that picture last night, but you hear him both talk about it in interviews. It's pretty funny, but I mean, he's just an amazing wrestler. And I hear some people knocking like, oh, he's not really from Dagestan. Like he's not really that type of wrestler. He is. He's an amazing wrestler. He has ridiculous chain wrestling ability. Some of the stuff he does in scrambles, like he'll drop to a knee and then like switch side. Like I can't even describe the stuff he does on the mat. But he's an innovative grappler, really smart wrestler, really strong wrestler. He can throw any flyweight across the gym. I love that he's been training at ATT. for this camp. He had a lot of rounds with Pedro Munoz, who was preparing for O'Malley, and then he had a lot of rounds as well with Alexander Pantoja, who is the #3 flyweight in the world. And just hearing Makayev talk about those sparring sessions, like he didn't say anything disrespectful, but you could kind of see and just hear in his voice that he's excited to climb the rankings now. Like he said he gained a ton of confidence from being at ATT and fighting with some of the top guys in the division. Sumadarji was another one he had a lot of good rounds with. And I mean, there's things to like about Johnson. He's going to be tough. He's gritty. He has ridiculous cardio. Like he was a Olympic level sprinter or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's track and field. This is a fight. And I just think Makayev's going to be able to get the wrestling going right away. He says he wants to show more of his skills and take it into the second round. I don't know. I think if the opportunity's there, he's gonna get the sub pretty early here. And I do think Johnson maybe is getting a little bit of disrespect on the line, but it's not much. Like Makayev's certainly a parlay piece for me. I'll probably bet him inside the distance. And yeah, he's been training with featherweights and bantamweights, and yeah, this is going to be a tough entrance into the UFC, but we see that a lot. Like these talented fighters from LFA and the regional scene, they get a really tough first fight because they need somebody, and then from there they can kind of build. And we see that all the time. Mason Jones when he fought Mike Davis, David Onama when he fought Mason Jones, and Charles Johnson when he fights Mohammed Makayev. Maybe he's a ranked flyweight, but he's not Mohammed Makayev. I'm super high on him here. I think he gets it done. I'll take his word for it. I'll say submission in the second round.
Yeah, and Makayev's man, he's the better striker in this matchup too. That's just something you hadn't touched upon. His kicks, I mean, he's a super diverse striker.
He's the more creative
I like the
striker,
camp he's been doing with ATT as well. But no, Johnson's not a good striker. His boxing, while he trains with a boxing gym and has had boxing bouts, he actually has a losing record.
Yeah,
his boxing did not, really come off the paper when looking into him. To me, I was more impressed with his wrestling and with his cardio and his ability to grind out fights. But again, someone like Makayev, I really don't think he's going to have the opportunity to do so. He is a bigger flyweight than a lot of the guys Makayev, may run into, but I still see Makayev, lining him up on the feet, probably catching him in a quick submission when these two are, starting to engage. I just see him being levels above, somebody of this caliber, and we'll see what happens as he, progresses up the ladder in the UFC. But yeah, I think this is a fight handpicked for him. He should absolutely roll. And as -500, I mean, when you look at some of the other lines on this card, like Makayev's the value spot, or you go Makayev inside the distance at an even number.
It's even inside?
Yep.
Oh my God. That's one of my favorite bets on the card. I mean, Johnson's tough. I don't think he's ever been submitted, but come on. I mean, come on. Yeah, I like Makayev a lot here. And he already has his 3 call-outs. I thought it was funny. Like he has Tim Elliott, Matt Schnell, and like someone else in the top 15 he knows he can beat. He's just really smart, man. And you listen to him talk, and there's cockiness and there's arrogance. Like he has a little bit of that, but he's just like so calm in everything he says. Like you just have to believe him, and he has the experience on the regional scene. I don't know. I'm so high on this kid. Yeah, he should roll here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a spot he should dominate. I may not think he has quite as high a ceiling. I may not weigh the 23-0
youngest champ ever
as high.
Youngest champ ever.
Yeah, we'll see about that. But
that's our bet, right?
We'll see
youngest
if he gets
champ ever.
Charles Johnson before we start.
No, we already have a bet. We can
will.
tell the viewers. We made a bet. I bet that he'd be the youngest champ in UFC history. Right? That was the bet.
Well, we're champion by the end of 20.
I thought it was youngest in history.
Again, he'll turn John Jones' age in just another year or so. So
we'll talk. We got to iron out those details. But yeah, I think he's going to be a title holder in the UFC, and maybe I'll look really stupid a year from now. We could play this back, or hey, maybe I'm just leading the hype train.
All right. Well, I'll lead the hype train next with Jai Herbert back in the home country, looking to get a win in front of the crowd this time around. Drawing Kyle Nelson here. Digging into this, I actually really did talk myself into Herbert in this spot. He's somebody who I'm not really one to trust very often. But I love this matchup for him. Nelson most recently got pieced up by a lanky striker and Billy Quarantillo. And I think Herbert is, going to have a decisive advantage when it comes to the striking in this fight. He's got 6 inches of reach. He's got 2 inches of height on Nelson. He clipped the Poria in that last fight in London. I think he really does have nice hands. He ended up getting caught himself, but really, the striking is clean from Herbert. Sometimes he gets caught on the feet, but I don't think Nelson is going to be the type of guy to punish him. And yeah, again, with some of the lines on this card, I think Herbert is going to be a good parlay piece at a minus 280 or 285. Using his size and beating a guy in Nelson who really does not have great wins in the UFC. I mean, I really see Herbert just keeping the range and picking him apart in this particular matchup.
Yeah, I agree with you for the most part, but it has to be said, Herbert's a glass cannon. I mean, he was dominating against Ronaldo before he got knocked out. Moicano rocked him before he finished him. He had the nice KO against Worthy, and then he almost stopped Taporia, which would have been amazing, and then he got dropped and completely flatlined. Very ugly KO. I like Herbert. I was high on him coming into the UFC, as I am with a lot of the Cage Warrior champs, and I don't know, they all have a soft spot with me, and we got a bunch of them on this card. But yeah, I think Herbert's going to be the much better striker here. He uses his range really well, which should be able to kind of keep Nelson at bay. Nelson's kind of been on the shelf. I guess apparently like he didn't get re-signed, but they were just like waiting to give him a fight because his contract was up. So like they weren't obligated to give him a fight. So this is another kind of cherry picking scenario. I think they saw what Herbert did against Taporia and they want to kind of build him up. But at the same time, I mean, he's so chinny, like of all the heavy favorites, I don't know that I'm the most confident in Herbert just because maybe Nelson can catch him with something. Like, and I mean, it's a puncher's chance. Like, I do think Herbert's certainly the side here. But if we're kind of just grading and ranking the heavy favorites, I don't know that I have Herbert as high as maybe you do, or some of these other options, just because the chin is a concern and it has been in almost every single fight we've seen him in the UFC. But yeah, technically speaking, much better than Nelson. The grappling should be pretty much a wash, and he's just leagues ahead of him on the feet. So as long as he tucks that chin, doesn't get over aggressive, like you'd like to think coming off such a brutal KO, he's going to be a bit more sound defensively. But yeah, that's the one concern here. I think Herbert's the side.
Yeah, and again, I really think Nelson gets clipped a lot when he is in that southpaw stance. And again, Herbert, obviously, with the durability, sketchy to back him as a big favorite, but this is a spot where I don't think Nelson is the kind of guy that really can land with that power and make him pay. We'll see. Anyone could get caught. But yeah, I like him in this particular matchup. Okay. Just 2 fights left to break down. This one, a woman's flyweight bout. Mandy Bohm taking on Victoria Leonardo. Probably the best fight on the card. Well, very evenly matched. We'll see what these two are able to do. Leonardo is the lean for me. I probably will dig into this one just a bit further, but yeah, her ability to make things a scrap and the high motor that she brings into the octagon makes her a bit more appealing. Bohm's the more technical of these two when it does come to striking on the feet. But I think Leonardo's ability to put on volume and to make it a bit scrappier should give her a bit of an edge. In addition to that, I think Bohm, looked very bad in that fight against Ani Lipski in her UFC debut. I really don't think Leonardo's much higher caliber, but dog money, this matchup, she's my lean right now. I don't know if you have any hidden gems on this fight, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, not sure about hidden gems, but I'm with you on the dog. I think Leonardo's definitely the side here. Bohm's kind of touted as like this striker, but when you watch her on film, there's nothing about her striking that is really impressive at all. And I mean, Leonardo has not had a good run in the UFC since her Contender Series win, but she's taken on Fiorot and Gatto, which is much tougher competition than even Lipski. And I mean, as bad as Bohm looked against Lipski, like before that, she's faced no one. Her best competition prior was some girl who her fight nickname is Pain Apple in Bellator. I thought that was maybe the worst nickname I've ever seen. So I just wanted to bring that up. But yeah, man, I think Leonardo's the side here. Do I want to get invested heavily in her? No. This is low level women's MMA. This is very low level when you're comparing them to the rest of the women on the roster. I just think we've seen Leonardo have success against a higher level of competition. Besides just Gatto and Fiorot, I mean, she fought Maverick to a decision on the regional scene. She's been in there with Erin Blanchfield, who head kick KO'd her, but at least we've seen her win minutes against high level competition. You can't say the same for Bohm. And this woman who's touted as a striker, her striking just doesn't look that good. So I think Leonardo should just be able to pick her up, slam her, kind of just control position, stay on top of her, maybe win via ground and pound or submission. But yeah, she's the side here. But again, I mean, as much as I like her at dog money, I don't want to get heavily invested. Like, this is just low level, and yeah, just not a fight you can get too excited about either way.
For sure. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, when you just bring up those losses for Leonardo, it is against, bigger, stronger, flyweights like Maverick, Bohm, like long limbs, like not really somebody who I think is going to be able to defend much if Leonardo elects to take this to the mat. So yeah, probably pushing her around, and I see her getting a win. And then opening the card, our last fight to break down, we really cruised through these. This matchup between Nicholas Dalby and Claudio Silva. I like Dalby in this spot. I mean, when it comes to Silva, he's a guy who really is not somebody I could trust. Just so focused on the jiu-jitsu, mediocre when it comes to striking on the feet. I think a guy like Dalby has the better boxing and the better UFC wins thus far. I think what he showed against guys like D-Rod and his ability to grind late in fights is going to be very fruitful here in this matchup against Silva. Probably defending takedowns early and putting it on Silva on the feet. Really similar to the path of someone like Amir Connie, the early sub for Silva is going to be the clearest path. But yeah, I think Dalby stuffs the early takedowns that are, pretty solid from Silva, and then we'll see them get a lot more sloppy. He should be able to take over, and definitely round 2, round 3, start putting it on him with the hands. I mean, back-to-back losses for Silva. He's not somebody I want to back, even as a 2-to-1 underdog.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is another one I'm really not too excited about. I don't rate Silva at all. Like you said, he's kind of a one-trick pony. Pretty tough. I don't know that he's been finished, but he's getting up there in age. But at the same time, I mean, I like Dalby in certain matchups, but this one's tough because usually you like Dalby against a striker when you can kind of ground them, control position. Here, I don't know that he's going to want to take that path because Silva is dangerous on the ground. He's the better striker and by a decent margin, but I wouldn't call Dalby a great striker. So it's tricky. I think the line is getting a little bit out of hand. I think Dalby's the side. Do I want to include him in parlays? Absolutely not. Minus 250 is just too heavy for me. But yeah, I think Dalby's the side here. Better all-around fighter. But yeah, I just saw before we started this stream, someone posted on Twitter. He had this like long paragraph about how he's been going through it in life, and he's like been really depressed, more downs than ups. And it's him squatting by the water, butt naked. And it's just like the weirdest, like, I don't know, man. I don't know if he's trying to swing the line so he could bet on himself, but like, if you're a Dalby backer, I'd suggest you check that post out. It's not encouraging at all. I like Dalby here. I think he wins. Am I confident? Absolutely not. Silva could catch him in a sub early. But after the first round, maybe you live bet. Maybe you get Dalby at a better number once he falls behind. But I think the books are probably hip to that at this point, that Silva's kind of a one-round guy.
Yeah. And I'll definitely check that out before I go and go to the window at a minus 240. But yeah, I think it's the spot against a 39-year-old. I really think he gets the job done here on home turf, but definitely
Dalby's
volatile.
37.
Definitely a reason that it's the first fight of the night.
Yeah, and Dalby's old too. He's 37, so
right.
It's not, Silva's washed, but Dalby's getting there too. So,
all right, well, that's the card. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed our breakdowns, and certainly we'll be tuning in Saturday to watch this card, UFC London. Really great top to bottom. We will have our write-ups live on Dying Sports at the latest by Saturday morning. Final predictions, a little write-up for each fight, saying where we're going, where we feel confident with our money. Nick, any final thoughts heading into the card this weekend?
no, really fun card. Just pick your spots, guys. I mean, there's a lot of heavy favorites. If you're making parlays, make sure it's the ones you like. And yeah, there is some value. There is some good dog picks, but just don't go too crazy. This is a really fun card. There's a lot of kind of matchups the UFC wants something to happen. That doesn't always happen. So as much as we like some of these guys, just be smart with your bankroll. We got a pay-per-view next week, and yeah, the UFC's been great lately. Some of the fights that have just gotten announced are insane. I mean, we're gonna have a really fun run here to finish out the year.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Awesome fights as always. Great card this weekend. We appreciate everyone for tuning in and checking out the fights. Hope everyone enjoys UFC London this Saturday. Take care.
Take care. Look
No.
up that Dolby picture.
Okay. Yeah, that's sketchy.
Read the post with the picture and tell me you want to back